Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to, depending on wherever you may live, this middle of the night or early morning bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they really do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this middle of the night or early morning bonus upload. Shall we? Well, we are going to jump into my second home state of Maine. Beautiful state. A lot of people think Maine is just oceans and beaches, but no, it is deep, deep wilderness. Funny thing, when I was younger, I'd go to Maine and I would work in the summers. I'd stay up in the family house. I would wait tables. And then at the end of the year, my parents would drive me up, stay for a week or two, and then come back to New York. And I would stay. Of course, my aunt lives up there. She's a school teacher on Mount Desert Island, which is Bar Harbor. So I have a cousin who is my age. We're like a couple months apart, and I had friends up there. So I'd stay up there when I was old enough to stay alone. Otherwise, I'd stay at my aunt's house. And one year, I got the brilliant idea to, instead of take a bus home, I decided to hitchhike. And I hitchhiked across the state of Maine into New Hampshire, up the top of New Hampshire, the top of Vermont, down through Vermont, into New York, and then home in 18 hours. And it was a terrifying ordeal. 18 hours doesn't seem like a long time, but it is. I had a Burton backpack on that was absolutely huge, and I had all my stuff in it. And I had an old, it wasn't old then, but it's old now, yellow waterproof Sony cassette player. And I had like 3 cassettes with me and an endless supply of batteries. And but it was fun. I remember when I got to Vermont, I'm walking down, I forget the name of their highway, but I'm literally going south. And I could hear just the coyotes yipping because it was just starting to get dark. And I had gotten a ride from 2 construction workers. So, but it is not just beaches and oceans. It is dense wilderness, beautiful dense wilderness. So let's get into this. Today's first subscriber, Maine Dogman submission. Jeff, how are you? I hope you are well. Long-time listener, first time sharing these with anyone other than friends and family. Let's get right to it, brother. So I live in the northern Maine woods, and my family has for generations. My great-great-granddad was a logger, and so on, all the way down to my dad. I work for the Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands. Needless to say, I grew up in the woods. To be honest, the nearest paved road from my house is about 30 miles. I've heard stories from my granddad and Gram about a Bigfoot in the apple groves, and I guess one would rob my Gram's honeycomb sheets right out of the hive. So I've always known these things existed. My great-granddad told my granddad about another type of Bigfoot that looked just like a wolf, but were nasty critters. He said they would hunt the loggers back in the early part of the 1900s. The natives had a different name for them about 6 years now. Back in the early part of 2014, I was out checking trap tags, making sure there was no illegal trapping going on. You see, during the season, the traps have to have identification on who owns them, otherwise we take the traps out. So here I am, about 4 or 5 miles out, away from my truck. Beautiful day, high 40s, and sunny. I'm hiking about, and the local wildlife are doing their business, when all of a sudden, listen to me, Jeff, it went silent. All I heard was the crunching of snow from me, not anything else. It's the beginning of April, so everything's busy normally. This stops me, so I start looking around. About 400 yards, I see this massive brownish-black mass moving around. I stare at this thing and realize it's huge, 300 to 400 pound black bear. Just a big old boy. He's looking around for food and whatever. I decide at this point to turn around and head back to my truck. I start toward my truck, and I'm about 1,000 yards from this big boy. And I see just out of the corner of my eye another brownish, massive blur going towards this big boy. I stop because now I'm thinking, 2 black bear in the same area. This isn't going to be good. So I position myself behind this huge pine and grab my monocle and using my 870 Magnum shotgun, I start scanning where the bear was, and to my horror, see what I can only describe as a werewolf on roids approach the bear. The bear sees the creature and lets out a growl roar sound, like saying back off and stand up. The bear was easily 7 feet tall, 300 to 400 pounds. The Dogman was at least a good foot taller, and about the same. Wait, the Dogman is massive and lunges for the bear. The bear drops down to all fours and explodes upward in an attack mode. These two beasts are tearing into each other, biting and wrestling around. The bear made the Dogman stumble back, bite into its leg, and as it does this, the Dogman leans in or falls in, but starts biting the back of the bear's neck and scratching at its face. The bear lets out a sound of pain, and a sound I will never forget and don't want to hear again. I just see blood everywhere on the snow. The bear goes limp, and the Dogman grabs it by its head and threw it at the tree. About 5 feet away, the bear hits it with a crunch. Seconds after, the Dogman's licking its leg where the bear had bit into it, and stops and starts smelling the air and turns its head, and it sets in my direction. I'm crapping my pants at this point, and I draw a bead on the critter with my 870, praying it doesn't come toward me. I take one shot. I know I didn't hit the thing, or maybe I did, but when my 870 went off, the creature took off. I waited about 2 or 3 minutes scanning around me, looking for this creature. I didn't see anything, and I carefully walked over to the bear. That poor bear was barely clinging to its life. He was done. I had to dispatch the bear. I got back to my truck and got on the radio. I knew no one was going to believe what I saw. I reported I had come up on a bear that was mauled by another bear. 4 other guys and myself dragged this bear out of the woods with a struggle, and this Dogman threw it like it was a rag doll. Later that week, when a necropsy, an autopsy for animals, was done, it was stated that they never seen a black bear attack so bad and so savagely. I think about that day often still. I still go out in those woods for my job, but I carry 2 Glocks and my 870. These creatures are real and they are not friendly. Please be careful, everyone. Jeff, good luck and stay strong. Today's second subscriber, Maine Dogman Encounter. Hey Jeff, I love your courage. This is my juvenile Dogman Encounter. Back around 1994, I had a run-in, a face-to-face encounter with a juvenile dogman in Ocean Park, Maine. I was walking on foot from my cousin's cottage in Camp Ellis, Maine. I walked down the local road to my cottage. At the end of the street, a dogman growled at me. It walked out of the brush and sat as a dog would do. It sat on its hindquarters with its arms up front. It was 4 to 5 feet tall, just sitting there staring at me. As I walked forward, it growled. I approached it, saying, "Hey, buddy." I know, crazy. But it looked like a very thin dog-wolf hybrid. It immediately went on all fours with its head down, still growling at me. I reached out my hand and repeated, "Hey, buddy." It cocked its head sideways, like a dog would do. But it continued its advance. Luckily, I was a few feet away from the cottage of friends of mine. Unarmed, I retreated to their front porch. The cottage was owned by my friend's aunt. My friend was a police officer from Massachusetts. And, to my luck, it was unlocked. I entered the front porch and lied down on the floor of the porch, fully expecting this creature to enter, as I saw its front paws were like hands. But it didn't. I literally passed out and was awoken by the current renter at 6 in the morning. He woke me up, and I asked, "Hey, is Paul here?" He said, "There's no Paul here." I ran home some 50 meters away. This dogman was very thin and sat 5 to 6 feet. I have a dogman encounter on another channel, and I can only assume it was a juvenile from my first encounter. God has a sense of humor, and I can only imagine he allowed me to have this second encounter to warm me to the dogman roamed our quiet little beachfront town at night. I had forgotten of this encounter when I was interviewed, but I've been praying lately to remember my Bigfoot and dogman encounter in Ocean Park, Maine. My family and wife could not handle my stories considering these cryptids, so I shut them out of my mind. Until recently, when I prayed to God to remember them, they happened so infrequently that I forgot about them. But after hearing your channel and the other person's, I asked God to restore my memory. You see, every time I relayed these experiences to my friends and family, I was told, "Don't be crazy. No one will believe you. And you will be labeled as crazy anywhere there is. If you vacation in Ocean Park, Maine, beware. They live around that area." Now, I did have this subscriber on. He did share both of his encounters with me, and you guys. I know he's still a subscriber to this day of this channel because I see him in the comment section every once in a while. So, yeah, definitely. It was a great interview. Great person as well. So, let's move on. Shall we? There's the second one for you. Well, guess what? That wraps up Maine. Now, on to Maryland. Today's Maryland Encounter subscriber. Maryland Encounter at that. Jeff, I'm 62 years old and I've been listening to you for a long while. I've had a couple of encounters with a female dogman. I was 14 years old. I was not going to school at the time due to knee surgery, so I would roam the woods around my house with my dog. My dog was a male shepherd, very smart. This one afternoon I was roaming through the woods about a half a mile from my house. I could hear a bunch of dogs barking at the farm that I was close to. I had slid down into a ravine. My dog was just ahead of me. When he came running back to me, I was sitting down at the time and he sat on my lap. He has never done this before. Then I hear something moving above me, and I look up, and out from behind the tree stood a female dogman, standing 2 feet, about 6 feet tall. She had 2 chickens in her hands. With my full-grown shepherd sitting on me, I couldn't move, so I sat there looking at her. My dog was just sitting there on me. His tail was wagging. I could tell she was young, very clean, no smell. She actually held up the chickens in her hands with a look of pride, like, look what I did. She then made this chirping noise, and my dog runs up to her like they were old friends. He was making little barks, and she barked back at him. He was jumping around her like, come on, and let's play. I sat there in the ravine watching this for 5 or 6 minutes. Then she turns and heads north, and I head south to my house. The second time I saw her was 1.5 years later in the same forest, just a different area. My dog was with me, and she steps out from a holly tree. And she had a young one with her, clinging to her leg. My dog was not scared, so I just followed him and stood there quietly. While he was by her, she let him smell her little one and relaxed, and got playful with the dog. This lasted for a couple minutes, then she turned around. Now, I don't know about these animals back then. After listening to your show, I learned it was a dogman. But in all your podcasts and others I've listened to, I always heard that dogs would be deathly scared of them. These two acted like they were old friends. I've been back in those woods, and same area. The world around me went quiet. This took place in southern Maryland, in St. Mary's County. Thank you for what you do. Jerry. I think I'm going to send him an email, because I would love to hear him share that encounter. I mean, yeah, he's 62, so he's probably 63 or 4 now. So 50 years later, but still, that's just, it's an amazing, it gives you a whole different perspective on the dog man. Obviously, she was young, but, you know, holding up the chickens, like, hey, look at what I did. His fully grown shepherd walking up to her, you know, barking. They're barking and chirping at each other, making noises. She barked at him. He was jumping around. They played there for a little bit. I mean, and then she shows herself again 1.5 years later with a little one, and still lets his dog near her little one. And that's just amazing to me. That, you know, we hear so many ill stories of these creatures, these apex predators, but yet we hear so little stories like this that it makes me feel good when we do hear a story like this. You know what I mean? So that wrapped up Maryland. Now we're just going to go up the coast, not all the way to Maine, but just before it to Massachusetts. In the first subscriber Massachusetts encounter we're going to get to, I shared this girl's subscriber encounter back in Florida. Now, this is her first encounter that she had in Massachusetts before moving to Florida, which is a very, very creepy encounter, if I do say so myself. Hey Jeff, my mom, 3 siblings, and I were living in Massachusetts up in the woodsy parts of Northampton. That's pretty much all I know as far as where it was at the time. So I have 2 brothers, 14 and 13, a sister 12, and of course I was 5 at the time. My mom would leave the eldest to take care of the rest whenever she had to go anywhere, whether she was at the grocery store or working. So on this particular day, she had to go to the grocery store, and she took my second oldest and my sister with her because they kept fighting and she also needed help, so she left me with my older brother. I was a good kid, so he loved babysitting me. And a little info on my brother. He's an introvert. didn't talk much, enjoyed being alone, tough, big boy, very creative, amazing artist. And I was one of the few he actually enjoyed being around and just felt comfortable with. So he took advantage of the fact that it was early. And it was just us two, and not our annoying siblings. And so he decided to go for a walk in the woods. He and I loved nature and the animals, so obviously he was like, this is going to be fun. Our house was literally surrounded with woods, so we didn't have to go too far. He asked me if I wanted to go for a walk, and of course I said yes. So we walked to our backyard and straight into the woods, not thinking much of it. Like, what could possibly happen? I know, dumb looking back now. He's 14 and I'm 5. Not a good idea. So, there we are, just enjoying our surroundings. It was so beautiful. I don't know how much time had passed, but I did realize early on that there were no animals in sight. Nothing. Not a squirrel or even a bird. But I'm little, so I thought maybe sleeping. And every so often I would look up at my brother and he would give me a forced smile, as if something was wrong, and then all of a sudden he stops and looks around like if he was looking for something. So I just drifted away from him because I wasn't going to leave until I saw an animal. That was the reason why I wanted to go. So as I walked away, I looked at him to see if he noticed that I had left his side, but he was focused on something ahead of us. I didn't think anything of it, so I turned and kept walking, humming to myself. Then I noticed movements out of the corner of my eye. I got so excited I turned towards it, and just a few feet away from me, ahead of us, in the brush, I saw a large figure. I stared at it, thinking it was a bear. All I remember seeing was its shiny nose, and just a lot of hair everywhere. Now, I'm 5, so I don't know what to make of it, other than a bear. Even though it didn't make any sounds, it was quiet, and it kept trying to hide. And it was for such a quick moment, because next thing I knew, my brother is dashing towards me, picking me up like a football, and runs like a bat out of hell. Jeff, I was so confused as to why he reacted that way. He was running so fast that it scared me. We got home so quick he ran inside, shut and locked the door, and just looked at me like he wanted to cry and dropped to his knees and hugged me so tight, like he never wanted to let go. So I hugged him back, confused, and asked him if he was okay. He nodded and never said anything. He then just distracted me with cartoons and waited for my mom to get home. That was it. Not exciting, I know. I would love to know what you think, and if you have any questions. The second one will be coming soon. That's, of course, if you still want me to share it with you. Now, the second encounter is, they're in Florida. They live next to their grandma's, their mom's mom, because she's not feeling well or not doing well health-wise. And there's a huge thunderstorm. And the mom goes to check. The kids are all getting set because they're excited, a storm. They're like, I don't know, planning on watching a movie or doing something during the storm. And the mom wants to go and check on the grandmother before, the storm settles in. And they get to make popcorn or whatever and watch their movie. Well, the mom comes running back in, petrified, locks the door. The older brother, they hear something on the roof. The older brother goes running out with a knife, the same one that is the introvert. And he comes back in and locks the door and has got a look of terror. I believe they looked out the window and they saw the Dogman. And the brother then shared with the sister, the subscriber, that is the creature they saw in Massachusetts. I would love to have him on or to hear his side. Like she said, he is introverted And, I respect that. But still, it'd be an amazing... I know she's asked to have him come on or, share something. But I still think it would be cool. And she still is a subscriber to this day, too. So here is today's second Massachusetts subscriber Dogman Encounter. Hey Jeff, my encounter happened in late summer of '85 in Pepperell, Massachusetts. I was at a little party in town with two of my best friends, Lee and Rick. At about 1 a.m, we left the party to drive Rick home. Rick lived on the outskirts of town, on top of a small secluded mountain surrounded by a lot of fields and woods. The road, or driveway to Rick's house, circled this small mountain, gradually going up to the top where his house was, and was the only house on the mountain. About halfway up, there was a turnaround where people would pull off the main way. Oh yeah, just for context, this is all dirt and rocky road. So we stopped up halfway and decided we would roll one and burn. Yeah, weed, but anyone who thinks a little weed and a couple of Budweisers makes you hallucinate is not being rational. Anyway, we had been there for about 15 minutes. Lee was in the driver's seat, Rick was in the passenger seat, and I was sitting in the back behind Rick. I started hearing sounds of sticks breaking, like someone was walking toward the car. The car was a big white Oldsmobile Cutlass. I said with a little concern, "Hey guys, do you hear that?" Lee replies, "Hear what?" But Rick replied, "Yeah, I do." Then we heard a large stick or branch snap loudly, and from right beside my window. I only saw a black mass fly by the window, and bam! Something big was on the roof of the car and was banging on it. Luckily, Lee kind of caught a glimpse of the mass and was already starting the car and flooring it. Soon as it fired up, we took off sideways, spun around heading back down the driveway, and swinging back and forth to get this thing thrown off the car. I guess from the momentum of him fishtailing, I saw it roll onto the road from the back window. It rolled around, I think, 5 or 6 times, then just sprang up on its feet. It's friggin' huge and appeared furry. Lee saw some of its form in his mirror, but was also driving. He kept saying, "It's a Bigfoot," but after what I saw in my mind, I thought it was a werewolf. I just agreed with the Bigfoot theory. After a couple days, I started to analyze everything, and remembered seeing a foot hanging by my window. And it looked human, but longer and leaner. Everything about this thing was big, but not bulky, like you see in Bigfoot sketches and pictures. I'm convinced it was a Dogman over 30 years later. Even though it was dark, I can still see it clearly in my memories that night. Thanks for listening, Jeff. Alright folks, I hope you all enjoyed this middle of the night, early morning bonus upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel continue to grow and go. And honestly, what makes it a place for people to share their experiences, ideas, and theories, judgment and ridicule-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.